Guys, my name is Bhargav. We run a company called Tailwinds. What Tailwinds does is basically we are helping companies from a DevOps perspective, right from the architecture to DevOps, whatever you are on the cloud, be it on-prem or on the cloud. Okay, so we are building a product called Majordomo. So classically puts together many different tools and help you to move forward, because learning all these different tools is too complicated and a lot of overload in terms of learning these tools. I mean, we are kind of taking this thing, converting it into a product and giving it to you. So we have a platform called Majordomo. Now coming to the session. So this is a tricky session is what I thought, right? I mean, we have startups from one range who may know very well in the cloud. Somewhere in between, you may know some cloud or may not know. On other spectrum, other end of the spectrum is something you may not know cloud, right? How do I approach it? So that's what my question was. Then what we thought was, okay, whatever we have learned from our Tailwinds experience, we are also a startup incubated just few months back. We have been running this company for about a year now. So what we have learned, I thought we'll share with you so that you can go from there. And what is the way we are approaching? Okay. So just before starting this session, would like to know how many are actually using cloud? Okay. How many are planning to use the cloud? Okay. So at some point in whatever you do, right? I know today's the collection of data that you're going to take, be it, you may stream it to a cloud or you may run it on-prem, however it is, this is going to happen, right? You need some kind of a compute resource or a storage resource that you need at some point of time. So the way I've approached this, okay, let me just give a brief intro about cloud, very brief, why you need to use cloud, and then we'll approach on how you want to build it, okay? You can stop me anywhere, ask questions, let's make it as interactive as possible, okay? See, in olden days, people used to build their own data center. Now, you have to go buy your servers, storage, network. It's too complicated affair. Now, for you to even build the simplest of data center will take you about 6 months. You need a place. Typically, if you go to an office, you'll say, hey, my data center is here. Then they'll show you a place where, a lot of ACs used to run. They want to keep it cooler, etc. Right? So it's a very costly operation, right? Now, then after you build a data center, you'll probably, even the smallest of one, it'll take you a couple of months to build one, right? Once, then you start building your applications, and then you kind of show your value, right? So the getting to market is very slow. From the day you have an idea to actually getting it in front of some kind of an MVP product, right? A product that is demoable or an MVP stage, will take you anywhere between 6 to 8 months. Now you don't know whether the product is worth it or customers are really willing to play. So you are paying an upfront cost of a capex that you are spending, so which is too expensive. So what the cloud said was, hey, you forget about all that. You come to me, you take the resources based on pay as you use resource, pay as you use. How much ever you're using, you just pay me. So by doing that, you're not actually, your front, the time, amount of time that you're spending on building this data center is gone. Your product is faster to market, okay? Since you're not upfront paying the capex cost, you're paying a recurring cost, monthly cost, right? Monthly, you probably at an MVP stage, you may spend about $50 to $100. Your MVP stage should not really go more than that, okay? So you need to tighten up that MVP product to that level. So $100 is what you typically should spend on the cloud, right? Just a ballpoint figure. Don't take it as, if you have a lot of data, you obviously need a lot of storage. It's a different story. But I'm just saying, from a compute perspective, right? So that's why you should choose anything building on the cloud. Now, once you have a product that customer wants, that is ready to scale, then you decide whether you want to move it to on-prem or be on the cloud that you're there. Okay, makes sense? Now, of course, there are many choices. The few pictures I've listed are the popular ones. One thing you must at the stage that we are in, I mean, I will also include tailwinds as part of where you are in some category, right? We need to be, cautious that everybody gives a free credits. So learn to use them and make sure you use them judiciously. Okay, I've seen companies who just get the credits, even as an individual, whatever you have been doing, right? You take the credits, they give you $100 per month, and you just use it one time, you forget about it, you're gone. You lose that $100, right? So, all this, Azure or AWS, everybody gives you free credits starting from $1,000 to 150K, I mean, 150K dollars. Okay, so use them judiciously, use them properly, don't waste them. In terms of feature sets, I mean, if you're just looking for compute, storage, and network, pretty much everybody is same, unless if you want something really performant. AWS is a general purpose thing, so it may not be that performant when you compare to, for example, DigitalOcean. So that's a choice that you make depending upon the product line that you are developing. Right? Otherwise, let's say you want to take a login scheme from Google. You can have your product in DigitalOcean and have a service talking to the Google's login scheme or a Google Maps part of your whole thing, right? So all that is possible. So use your, get the free credits, use them judiciously. Okay, so those are the few things we'll talk about. Okay. Any questions till now? Okay, so I'll go on to this challenge of getting to MVP, right? What we have seen, okay, in MVP stage, may be applicable. We can always have a debate. The assumption here is that you typically build an MVP with a limited team. It is about what you see from the slide, right? 2 to 4. At the stage of MVP, there is one thing that we typically find, right? We want to get to customers as fast as possible. That is true, right? So you have a constantly moving feature set. You don't know what works. You don't know what will stick with the customer, right? We may have an assumption that's all there. So you will get into this loop of whole hypothesis, test them, etc., right? Your architecture is moving at a constant pace, I would say at a rapid pace, right? Make sure you have a process, at least spend some time building on the process. Think about it, build on the process. By doing so, what happens is that your architecture becomes, it's like this, right? You invest initially, on something, thinking about the architecture, how to make it extensible, in maybe a week or two, then you move forward with building your features based on those process. You will have a much return on what you are doing, right? Your tech is an important factor, but the features or whatever, if you are on fintech, your finance features is important. If you are on, building whatever waste management, those features are important. The tech features at the stage of MVP is actually people don't really look at it. Hey, this is providing a value, whether I am going to pay for this feature or not. That's the question people are going to answer. They're not going to say, do you have HA, right? Do you have, can it scale? Those are all problems to be solved at a slightly later stage, okay? Even we make this decision today, whether what features from a tech aspect we should put. Even though we are on DevOps, very on the technical side of the story, still we ourselves, take these choices, right? So that's one thing you have to think about. So spend some time on the architecture side. Now, this is about free credits, right? Why I'm kind of constantly, picking on the free credits. I've seen companies getting $5,000, losing $5,000. So have a process, have a thing that you shut down your VMs or schemes on a regular basis. Share the environments, okay? These are all like first 1 or 2 weeks that, you spend, you think about it, put the process in place, done. You should not even look back, okay? You should not even look back. That's how you need to do it. And try to, today, all our laptops are pretty expensive, high powered. You can as much run your VMs, use them properly, okay? Now till you are in series A, where you are actually solving a scaling problems, I would advise you to make sure you build a system where it is portable across clouds. I can just put it in AWS, take it and put it in DigitalOcean, put it in, take it in Azure, because everybody gives free credits. Try to make use of them. And of course, it has to fit into your business needs. Okay, so that's something you need to say. So once you start scaling, people will say, hey, put it on on-prem. I've seen this happening in the fintech companies, right? They build on the cloud, and then they suddenly, some customer says, hey, I want to put it on-prem. The on-prem becomes a challenge. So they have to rework on their architecture. Okay, so all that is something you can ideally plan before you start doing all this stuff. So, I mean, when you want to port it across different clouds, you obviously need a common deployment model. So just don't put jars. It may work in AWS, it may not work in the Linux that they provide, it may not work in DigitalOcean, etc. Right? I mean, I just want to jump and say use Dockers and use it. Okay, Dockers and containers are a standard deployment model. Every cloud supports it. Start using them. Start consuming the open source tools as much as possible. For everything that you do, there is some open source tool. Okay, and you just start, making a Google search and start using them. Don't build from a technical angle as much as possible. It's a waste of time and money. There are people who are building it free for you. Just consume them as much as possible. Now, moving to Docker containers, make you cloud agnostic. You can move your workload from one cloud to other. I'm not saying go to multi-cloud. These are all multi-cloud are all a problem that you need to solve, not as part of MVP, but possibly at an enterprise stage level, not at the MVP stage level. Okay, so two things: portable across clouds, free credits, and this is what we are doing, because we keep hopping clouds simply from the fact that the free credits exist for us. And it's not just us, the customers, we are all dealing with the same choices they make. And there are customers who start taking, for example, they start taking, at an MVP stage, they go and take a database from AWS. I would say that's a very costly investment. A database from AWS for anywhere between cost you $400, $500 per month, and you're wasting money, which you may not need, right? And you can't even port. You don't get it for free either. So use an open source database, whatever, right? Mongos or Redis or Arangos, whatever, whatever is your application architecture. Use an open source, get to MVP level, then you make choices when it really wants to scale, right? At MVP stage, you don't have a production environment. All you have is the dev and test environment. Only test is just some demo environment, right? Test, dev and demo environment. So use it judiciously. Like I said, what has helped us in moving the product is using a set of tools. Getting in the process, using the set of tools. Tools like Jira, right, where you plan. The Git, obviously you must be using Git, Jenkins, Dockers. Set up your simplest CI/CD pipeline. Don't waste your time on that, right? I have seen, when somebody checks in, your sharing of configs, the version numbers, what is the version? There is you want to increase your productivity, the developer's productivity, right? At an MVP stage, everybody is a developer. You don't have a cloud engineer or a DevOps engineer as to speak in that language, right? Make sure you increase your productivity by setting up these tools. Very simple. Okay. You don't have to do anything. I don't want to pitch my product, but we are giving a free version. You can just use it, set it up. It will be on the fly. Okay. And have, of course, one or two environments. One environment is dev, test, or in demo environment at the stage of MVPs. And one more thing, nothing related to cloud, etc., is something called OKRs. People who have been very successful, right from Teslas of the world to Googles of the world to Amazons of the world, they follow something called OKRs to measure the metrics. So keep doing this OKRs, right? So follow this. These are all set of good practices that will help you to push the product faster. Otherwise, you may get lost, especially at this MVP stage where things are all over the place, right? You don't know what you're developing. I mean, not that you don't know, but what I'm saying is you don't know what your customer wants. One customer wants this, the other customer wants that, and someone needs something different. So for you to plan, put things together, OKR are very, very important thing, right? What are the things that, the choices that we made at this point, that we at the MVP stage was scaling is, don't solve for scale. Your aim is to get the MVP out. Customers thinks this feature is good. I have a lot of customers who can pay. At that point, you don't want to whether your product is going to work or not, we don't know. It is only the market that has to decide, right? We may have an opinion, that's a different story, but don't go and solve the MVP stage problems. I mean, the scaling problems. The scaling really comes once you go from MVP to the hockey stick kind of a model, right? If you can hit that, fantastic, right? And I've seen people spending a lot of time on this multi-tenancy, okay? So multi-tenancy it depends on what type of, you're a B2B or a B2C. B2C is okay, some kind of multi-tenancy you need. If you're a B2B based companies, if you want to support different companies, people end up solving multi-tenancy on the software that they write. The fact is that to get a developer to do a multi-tenancy is an expensive affair. It is very hard, it is expensive. Rather, you can do it on the infrastructure. So where you want to handle the multi-tenancy and where you want to invest your money, that's the question that you need to answer at the MVP stage, right? Do I really need multi-tenancy? If you are just having 4 or 5 customers to prove your product, going and spending, having a developer, 2 developers you need, people who are really skilled, who understands the software, who understands how to write a multi-tenant software. That's at the MVP stage, don't try to solve that. Solve that in the infrastructure. You may pay extra on the infrastructure, but you may pay low on the developer cost. Okay, so how do you judiciously handle? Of course, other things like scaling and performance comes together hand in hand. HA, right? I don't really believe we should solve HA at a MVP stage, right? So these are the best practices that we are, we constantly hear. We are also reiterating our product at an MVP stage. Okay. So before going on to scaling thing, any questions here? Still now, yeah.
Depending on one cloud, that's MVP stage. Is that what you're telling me? Like depending on one cloud. So
No. See, what I'm saying is, you build your application such a way that you build it in certain cloud where you get free credits. Now that credits may get over. So for example, simplest thing is when you register as a startup in AWS, they give you $1,000 per year. Now it may take you 6-8 months to get there. The moment you develop, your $1,000 is going to get over. Now, but you should have a capability to move from AWS to immediately, say for example Azure. Azure gives you $5,000. So you should have that capability. Okay.
should that be done at MVP stage itself, like building for
Yeah, so the
portability?
choices that you make, how you build your application. For example, if you take an AWS database, MongoDB as a service, in AWS, you're obviously losing. You can't move your application, right? Let's say that is hard. So you take a MongoDB, an open source component, and keep it in your product. Dockerize it. The Docker will run across any clouds. Okay, so there is something called Docker Compose.
Yeah.
Simply you use the Docker Compose.
Okay.
So that will help you to move it across.
How about when I'm depending on services like AWS IoT?
If you write a service which will call that service across the cloud.
Okay, so I can replace it with any IoT service.
Yeah, so for example, login, right? IoT, login, your Google Maps. These are all services that you are going to take from Google, right?
Yeah.
So in those cases, have a service in your application that will talk to wherever you want to call the service, right?
Oh.
And data is another thing. So you have a lot of data. The cloud actually makes money from their compute. Storage is actually less from the data transfer. So data, you need to be careful. The bigger the volume of data is more that you store, to transfer from one cloud to the other cloud is very expensive. So the network cost is too much. Okay, so you need to be aware of that, right? And what type of application, how do you store the data? what you can essentially come around the problem is if you have a lot of data, even at MVP stage, you can keep the, let's say AWS, you have kept it. So you keep the data there, have a service talking to this. Okay, so like, you kind of move it at this point.
Okay.
So reduce your cost, right? Because if you are not conscious of the cost, if you're not keeping track of it, it is going to go high, right? That is the challenge. Yeah.
Like OKRs, like can you throw some lights on OKRs for now?
So OKRs is actually, it's nothing to do with cloud, okay? Uh, uh, KR stands for key results, organization key results, okay? So what you do is you define depends on every month or every 2 or 3 months. You first have a strategy for next 3 months. This is my strategy. This is what I'm going to target. This is my end goal. For this, what are the tasks I need to do? Okay, you define a thing, and for each of those OKRs, you assign to each of the people. I mean, at MVP stage, you don't have to go to specific. It will be too expensive. Any management meeting, too many meetings are all too much of a time. At organization level, you have an OKR. For example, I'll tell you an example. We have an OKR. January, I need to go for funding. That's our one of the key thing. For funding, what are the things I need to do? Okay, then I take one of the items. We have people who will work on each of the item. Then it translates to how many customers should I speak to, right? So every month I need to speak to 10 customers. So we started November, December, January, 30 customers. So it helps me to take a stand on, at every time you can review that OKR every week or every bi-weekly, however is your cadence of thinking is, you can look at it and start realizing where you are. Okay, rather than doing random things. Okay, so there's a book by John. It talks about OKRs. I'll send the book name. Okay, the key metrics to measure, not the KPIs. It's not the KPIs of the world that we typically use. It's the key metrics to measure. Depends on what is your business, where you want to go, and what you want to objectively.
You have learned a lot about KPIs, but OKR is something.
Yeah, it's not KPIs. Okay, so this has been, this has been popular for last 20 years. Okay, so that helps you to tweak along the way and move forward, and gives you the focus. And we have been following. It has yielded us really good results. And that's why all this tooling comes into place. Your Jenkins, your Jiras, all that comes into place. Right. Any questions? Okay. Now that you arrived a point where your MVP is working, and your customers are using the product, right? And there is a need for this product. So you probably at a stage where you're done with your seed, you're going with a Series A. That's a typical understanding. It may or may not be the case depending on the investment scenario that is available in the market, because now it is quite different, right? So you're actually hitting the so-called hockey stick growth, right? So at this stage, what are the what you need to do, right? So now you had 4 or 5 customers. Suddenly you are going to 50 customers. The challenge when you go to 50 customers obviously is that you start. I've seen people putting more people in terms of development. Where development you need more features, I do agree. On managing the cloud, right? So you'll have more DevOps people. You'll start saying, hey, I need more DevOps. I need 5 DevOps, 10 DevOps. So you have a dev team 15 to 20, and when you scale from 5 to 24 times, your DevOps should not also linearly scale. The guys who are managing on the cloud should not scale linearly. Now, if you had followed these processes initially, I think that will help you to grow your DevOps sublinearly. Okay, so that is something that you need to think about. Okay, so of course, now you may have used certain part of your free credits. You would have managed to keep other parts of your free credits for a scaling case. That's when actually ramp up and start looking for other cloud free credits. because like if you have a real good product that works, which is a very good credits that you can use, right? And when you start developing itself, spend some time on how you, the biggest challenge I've found with a lot of startups is we start go and develop the product. Modularize your design, run it as different services. Okay, so if you have a login as a login service, or you want some streaming as a streaming service, or a service that you want to talk to some IoT stuff in AWS, have it as a service. So in your Git, have it in different repositories. Make sure it is modular. That way it is very, very easy to handle. Okay, though you may have 10-15 services, the volume may look big, but from a handling case, managing the case, especially when it comes to scaling, no, if it is in some semi sort of monolith, even it is too hard to manage. I see constantly with these customers, right? So make sure you kind of split your services and use your REST. How do you talk with them, right? Each services use a REST or whatever schemes that you want. Typically, API is what you would expose, so you can use that. Okay. Now this is where the challenge comes. Now you are in the scaling stage. You have addressed all these benefits of using this credits, process, discipline. You need to have a scheme where the developer does not waste time on waiting for an infrastructure or some problem to be addressed from the cloud or some deployment. This is a challenge that I see, right? Hey, I'm waiting for some data. I'm waiting for this. The waiting time for the developer needs to reduce. That's when you need to really automate your DevOps process. I don't know how far it makes sense at this point for you guys, but at that point you have to see if you're having a team member of 15 to 20. Now you want to increase their capacity by 25%, if it is possible. Then you are looking at let's say 20 members, 25% is like 5. A 20-member team looks like 25 people. Okay, just adding a proper process in place. Okay, and then at that point you evaluate your multi-tenancy. Do I really need multi-tenancy? Okay, come back and evaluate the assumptions that you have made in the MVP stage, right? At this point is when you really should think of solving the scaling problems, not at the MVP stage. You are wasting your time if you are solving scaling and performance issues in the MVP stage. Okay, and of course, security, right? Security is when we start moving to customers. At that point, hey, am I making the right security choices? Those are the things should come at that point, not at the early time. And every cloud provides you everything. So I'm not getting into the specifics of the cloud, what is providing, etc. Right? There will be pros and cons this way, that way. Okay, and of course, I'm stressing on OKR stands for objective key results. You have an objective, you have what are the keys, for the objectives, then what are the results. Very, no, it's very tactical, not strategic, but the strategy, you have a strategy, then you do a OKR. So get down to the OKR to the team level. Okay, so that way you can actually make your whole engine of your engineering engine to move forward at a quicker pace and a very focused pace. Otherwise, it ends up being all over the place. Should I get into this, or we can probably take questions from now? Okay, I'll just go in. So now once you have grown from 50 to, you start going 100, 200, right? At that point is when you start looking at HA considerations. So you will have customers saying, if you're a fintech company, especially or RBI, they have a mandate of you running you have to have 2 regions. HA is from one region, and India never had 2 regions of all this date. People who have stuck with AWS, they had to run their stack in India. AWS did not have another region. Just before last month, they opened Hyderabad region. Okay, so they've got stuck. They could not get the certificates, right? So at that point, you start doing this HA consideration. Look at your reliability. Strong focus on security starts coming at this point. and you start optimizing on the cost. At this stage, nobody will give free credits. Okay, at this stage is when you start really paying for your, for the cloud cost. You start optimizing how you want to do at that point. That's a topic in itself. I'm not touching that, and that's when you should start looking at it. Till then, you should manage to use the free credits. Yeah. Questions very well. Okay. Any questions?
Like cloud optimizers, there are some cloud optimizers available, right, sir?
See, in your MVP stage, you should not look at it.
Okay.
Okay, that's if you are looking at it, something is wrong the way you are doing it.
Okay.
Okay, so there are 2-3 ways to optimize. I mean, probably you should start looking at the scaling stage. There are 2-3 ways that's cloud optimization that you need to look at. One is from an infrastructure, and every cloud optimization will tell you how do I shut down this infra in the night. You are actually using over your utilization is 10%. But you are using a larger, all that from an infra perspective. But what actually saves you is the process that you bring in and increase the developers' efficiency. That way, you are not only saving on the infra, but also saving on the developers' efficiency. That is the major boon that you should really look at. That planning comes in early. You plan early, you may not do anything at that point, but that is there at the back of your mind, and you execute it when you really need it, right? That's the challenge we find across a lot of even seed funded CDCS companies. They're not really optimized that properly. They start looking at cloud optimization infrastructure. They don't get anything. They may get 1 or 1.5 lakhs max, but that doesn't really benefits the company.
Okay.
Right? The benefit comes now if I can hire a developer. Instead of hiring, let's say like 20 to 25, right? If you have 50, your 25% will tell you 65 developers. I mean 62.5 theoretically. That's a huge gain. All these developers wait for the infrastructure or some log. I mean, I need a log message, or you guys being the founders, you will go and ask some infrastructure guy, hey, can you give me an environment? Tomorrow I have a customer demo, or day after tomorrow. That guy will spend the whole night to doing it. That's a waste of time. It's a waste of time for you. It's a waste of time for him, right? He will do it because you, being the founder, is going to do it for you, right? He doesn't have a choice. So what you need to do is you have a scheme where you just, for example, send a message on your Slack. I'm just saying, and automatically the infrastructure is ready for you. Nobody is involved in the process, and it is. I mean, it's not. You should not solve this problem, right? If you want to solve this problem, you have to hire somebody who understands cloud, you understand DevOps, putting this together. Good luck, right? So you need to figure out schemes where cheaper options and all that, right? And learn to use open source schemes. When you are in this Docker, Kubernetes, containers world, that is everything is open source. So you don't, using that will be a better choice.